everyone, and welcome back to CoinTalk Podcast. You know, we're your one-stop shop for all things crypto. And today we're diving deep into some news that could really shake things up in the crypto world. We're talking about the possible return of Brian Quintenz to the CFTC. Now, for those who might need a refresher, the CFTC is the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. They're the ones who oversee derivatives, and that includes, you guessed it, crypto futures.
And this isn't just any commissioner making a comeback. Quintenz is a big name in the crypto space. He's been called Crypto Dad, much like Hester Pierce, the crypto mom over at the SEC.
Yeah, I remember that. They both have a reputation for being pro-innovation. And during his time at the CFTC, Quintenz was a big advocate for clear, crypto-friendly regulations. So you can see why his potential comeback has everyone talking. And that's what we're going to unpack today here on CoinTalk Podcast. What could this mean for the future of crypto?
Well, to understand the potential impact, we need to look back at Quintenz's first stint at the CFTC. He was a commissioner from 2017 to 2021, which was a pivotal time for crypto as it really started gaining mainstream attention.
Feels like ages ago. Crypto moves so fast.
It does, and during that time, Quintenz played a key role in launching the very first regulated Bitcoin and Ethereum futures contracts.
Hold on, that's huge. Why was that such a big deal? I mean, I know it was important, but...
It was a game changer because before that, institutional investors were hesitant to touch crypto. They needed those familiar regulated products that futures contracts provide.
So it was like this move kind of opened the floodgates for Wall Street to jump into crypto.
Exactly. It legitimized crypto in the eyes of traditional finance. And that influx of institutional money helped fuel the growth we've seen since.
Makes sense. But then after leaving the CFTC, Quintenz didn't just disappear. He joined Andreessen Horowitz, or A16s as it's known.
Yeah.
They're a venture capital giant that's poured billions into crypto.
Oh yeah, A16s is a major player. They're invested in almost every major crypto project out there. Solana, Uniswap, you name it. And they've been very vocal about wanting the CFTC and not the SEC to regulate digital assets.
Really? Why do they prefer the CFTC?
They see the CFTC as more accommodating to innovation compared to the SEC.
Interesting. So it makes you wonder, did Quintenz join I16Cs because he shared that same vision for lighter touch regulation?
It's definitely something to consider, especially since A16s has been actively pushing for the CFTC to take the lead on crypto regulation.
So if Quintenz does go back to the CFTC, could this mean that A16's vision for crypto regulation could gain traction?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it's tough to say for sure. But it's a fascinating possibility, especially when you consider the size of the derivatives market, which includes crypto. We're talking about an estimated $400 trillion.
Yeah, 400 trillion. Wow, that's insane. So we could be looking at a major shift in how this massive market is regulated. Now, I know some of our viewers on CoinTalk Podcast might be thinking, hold on, didn't Trump leave office a while ago? And you'd be right. But this nomination is actually part of a larger effort that started during his administration. It seems they were trying to reshape the entire landscape of crypto regulation.
Right. Remember David Sachs? He was appointed the AI and crypto czar under Trump, and he was tasked with developing clearer regulations for digital assets.
So Quintenz's potential return to the CFTC wouldn't be happening in isolation.
Exactly. It could be part of a broader coordinated effort to create a more crypto-friendly regulatory environment. It could even be seen as a pushback against the SEC's more assertive and enforcement-driven approach under Chair Gary Gensler.
Now, before we get too ahead of ourselves, it's important to remember that Quintenz's nomination still has to go through the confirmation process, and that can be a bit unpredictable.
Absolutely. The confirmation process can be a wild card. There's always the possibility of political maneuvering and delays.
So while this is exciting news, especially for those of us who believe in crypto's potential, we need to temper our expectations and see how this confirmation process unfolds.
Definitely. It's definitely a story worth watching, especially for our viewers here on CoinTalk Podcast.
Speaking of CoinTalk Podcast, if you're enjoying this deep dive, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up.
And if you have any thoughts or questions about Brian Quintenz's potential return to the CFTC, leave a comment down below. We love hearing from our awesome community here at CoinTalk Podcast.
Now, before we move on to part 2 of this deep dive, there's one more important thing to mention. Acting CFTC Chair Caroline Pham has actually voiced her support for Quintenz's nomination.
Yes. And she even highlighted their past collaboration on some key initiatives during his first time at the CFTC.
So if Quintenz is confirmed, we might see a smooth transition and a continuation of the work they started.
It's certainly a possibility, and that continuity could be really beneficial, especially when it comes to crypto regulation. It suggests there's already some alignment on how they view the future of crypto within the CFTC.
So we have a pro-innovation figure potentially returning to a key regulatory position, and he might have support within the agency. This can have a huge impact on how crypto is regulated here in the U.S.
Absolutely. And don't forget, the U.S. often sets the tone for how the rest of the world approaches regulation. So what happens here could have ripple effects globally. This is something everyone in the crypto space will be watching closely, not just in the U.S.
And that's why we're here at CoinTalk Podcast, breaking it all down for you. We'll be back with part 2 shortly, where we'll delve even deeper into the potential impact of this appointment and what it could mean for your crypto investments. Stay tuned. Welcome back to CoinTalk Podcast for part 2 of our deep dive. We're talking about Brian Quintenz and his potential return to the CFTC. We've laid the groundwork. Now let's really get into it. What could this mean for everyday crypto investors like you watching this on CoinTalk Podcast?
Right, that's the question on everyone's mind. We can't predict the future, of course, but we can look at Quintenz's past actions and his general stance on crypto to get some idea of what he might do.
Okay, so let's do that. What could a CFTC led by Quintenz look like for the average person who's just getting into crypto?
Well, one possibility is we could see a more favorable environment for crypto businesses here in the U.S.
Okay, but what does that actually mean for someone who's, say, dabbling in DeFi or just holding some Bitcoin? How would they notice a difference?
Well, a more supportive regulatory environment could lead to more innovation and investment. More companies would feel comfortable launching new products and services.
So we could see more user-friendly platforms, maybe some exciting new financial products, and potentially even wider adoption of crypto for everyday use.
Exactly, more of those real-world use cases that everyone's talking about.
And a big obstacle right now is that there's a lack of regulatory clarity. A lot of companies are hesitant to get involved because they just don't know how they'll be treated by regulators.
Yeah.
You're right. That uncertainty can really stifle innovation.
Nobody wants to put in the time and money, only to have the rug pulled out from under them by some sudden regulatory crackdown.
Exactly. And that's where Quintenz's focus on clear and pro-innovation regulation could be a game changer. When companies know the rules of the game, they're more likely to invest and build, which ultimately benefits everyone in the crypto ecosystem.
So more clarity leads to more investment, which then leads to more innovation and growth.
Exactly. And for investors, that means more opportunities, potentially more stable markets, and maybe even better returns over the long run.
Sounds good to me. But I know some people watching this on CoinTalk Podcast might be a little worried. They might think that a pro-innovation approach means we're just throwing consumer protection out the window.
It's a valid concern, and one that Quintenz himself has acknowledged. He's not advocating for a Wild West scenario. He believes in balancing innovation with safeguards to protect investors.
So it's not an either-or situation. It's about finding that sweet spot where we can foster innovation, while still protecting people from scams and bad actors.
Right, it's like building a house. You need a solid foundation and strong walls to keep it standing, but you also need windows and doors to let in light and make it livable. Regulation is similar. You need rules to prevent fraud and manipulation, but you also need flexibility for creativity and new ideas to flourish.
I like that analogy. So what kind of specific measures could we see under Quintenz's leadership to protect investors while still allowing for innovation?
Well, for one, we could see more emphasis on investor education. Right now, a lot of people are jumping into crypto without really understanding what they're getting into.
I've definitely seen some pretty sketchy projects and promises out there.
Exactly. Better investor education could help people make more informed decisions and hopefully avoid falling for scams. We could also see the CFTC taking a more active role in preventing market manipulation and ensuring greater transparency.
So things like preventing insider trading, making sure exchanges are playing by the rules, that sort of thing.
Exactly. It's all about creating a level playing field where everyone has access to the same information and the same opportunities.
More clarity, better investor education, measures to prevent manipulation, all good things. But what about access to crypto itself? For a lot of people, it can still be complicated to buy, sell, and store crypto.
That's another area where Quintenz's leadership could make a difference. He's talked about the need for user-friendly financial products that make it easier for people to get involved in the crypto market.
You mean things like crypto ETFs? I keep hearing about those.
Exactly. ETFs and other innovative products that are regulated and traded on traditional exchanges, those could make it much easier and more secure for people to invest in crypto.
So you wouldn't have to worry about setting up a crypto wallet. or figuring out how to store your private keys. You could just buy shares of a crypto ETF through your regular brokerage account.
Exactly. Just like buying stocks or bonds, something people are already familiar and comfortable with.
That would be huge. It would make crypto so much more accessible to the average person.
Right, and that increased accessibility could lead to even more mainstream adoption.
Which would benefit the entire industry. Now, we've been talking a lot about the CFTC, but what about the SEC? They also have a role in regulating financial markets, don't they?
Absolutely. And as we mentioned before, the crypto industry generally prefers the CFTC's approach. But the SEC under Chair Gary Gensler has also been pretty active in the crypto space.
Yeah, and their approach has been, well, a little more aggressive, wouldn't you say?
You could say that. Gensler has been pretty clear that he believes a lot of cryptocurrencies fall under the SEC's jurisdiction, and he's not afraid to take enforcement action.
We've seen quite a few high-profile cases lately.
And those lawsuits and crackdowns have definitely sent shockwaves through the crypto world.
For sure. So we have this difference in approach between the CFTC and the SEC. It's almost like a tug of war over who gets to regulate crypto.
It is, and it's unclear how this will all play out in the long run.
So if Quintenz is confirmed to the CFTC, how do you think he'll handle this potential conflict with the SEC?
That's the big question. He's been a vocal advocate for the CFTC's role, but he's also a pragmatist. I suspect he'll try to find ways to work with the SEC to create clearer boundaries and a more harmonious regulatory environment.
More collaboration, less conflict.
Hopefully. Because ultimately, everyone benefits from a clear and consistent regulatory framework.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit and look at the global picture.
Yeah.
How could Quintenz's return to the CFTC impact the crypto landscape worldwide?
Well, remember what we said earlier. The U.S. often sets the tone for global regulation. So if the U.S. establishes a more clear and innovation-friendly approach to crypto, other countries might follow suit.
So what happens in the U.S. could have ripple effects all over the world.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important for everyone in the crypto space to be aware of these developments, not just those in the U.S.
And that's why we're here at CoinTalk Podcast, bringing you all the latest news and analysis to help you make sense of it all. And if you're enjoying this deep dive, please do us a favor. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss any upcoming videos. And give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us out.
And if you have any thoughts on what we've discussed so far, leave a comment down below. We love hearing from our amazing community here at CoinTalk Podcast.
Now, before we get to part 3 of this deep dive, I want to remind you that we're speculating a bit here.
Right, we're making educated guesses based on what we know about Quintenz and the current regulatory climate.
Exactly. So stay tuned for part 3, where we'll dive into some potential challenges and uncertainties. We'll be right back. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive here on CoinTalk Podcast. We've been exploring what Brian Quintenz's potential return to the CFTC could mean for the crypto world, and it's been a fascinating discussion. But we've got to be realistic. There are always challenges and uncertainties when it comes to something as big as this. So let's talk about those first.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the hype, especially with crypto. But we need to remember that even if Quintenz gets confirmed, he's not going to be working in a vacuum.
Right, he can't just snap his fingers and change everything.
Exactly. He'll be part of a complex system with a lot of different players and a lot of different interests. Even within the CFTC itself, he'll need to build consensus among the commissioners and navigate the internal politics.
And then there's the political landscape outside of the CFTC. You know, there are still plenty of lawmakers and regulators who are skeptical of crypto, or even outright hostile towards it.
Oh, absolutely. We've already seen some pushback from members of Congress, and other agencies like the SEC might not be too happy about the CFTC taking on a more prominent role in crypto oversight.
And let's be honest, the crypto industry itself isn't exactly known for being unified.
True. There are so many different projects and philosophies and approaches, it's unlikely that everyone's going to be on board with Quintenz's vision.
So even with the best intentions and a pro-crypto mindset, there are going to be hurdles and disagreements, and probably some unexpected roadblocks along the way.
Definitely. That's just the reality of trying to regulate something as new and as complex as crypto. The tech is evolving so quickly, it's hard for regulators to keep up.
Yeah, it's like trying to hit a moving target. By the time they write a regulation and debate it and finally implement it, the technology might already change completely.
Exactly. And that can be incredibly frustrating for everyone involved, both the regulators and the companies they're trying to regulate.
So finding that balance is tricky, providing clear guidelines while still being flexible enough to adapt to change.
It's a huge challenge.
And it's not just about the technology itself, it's also about thinking ahead. What are the potential risks of these new technologies? What unintended consequences might there be?
Right, like cybersecurity threats, data privacy issues, even the potential for new types of financial crime. Regulators have to be thinking about all of that and trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Not an easy job. And to make things even more complicated, we have to remember that crypto is a global phenomenon. What other countries decide to do in terms of regulation, that will have an impact on the U.S. market.
Absolutely. We're seeing a whole range of approaches around the world, from the EU's fairly comprehensive MiCA regulation to more permissive environments like in Dubai or Singapore.
So it's like this patchwork of different rules.
Yeah, and that can make it difficult for businesses that operate globally. And it creates opportunities for what's called regulatory arbitrage, where companies move their operations to places with more favorable rules.
Which then undermines the regulations in places with stricter rules. Sounds like we need more international cooperation to really address these challenges.
I completely agree. Crypto doesn't care about borders. So we need to start thinking about regulation in a more global way.
So to sum it all up, even if Quintenz's return to the CFTC does lead to a more innovation-friendly environment for crypto here in the US, there's still going to be a lot of challenges. Internal politics and external pressures, keeping up with the speed of innovation, working towards a more harmonized global approach to regulation.
It's definitely not going to be easy.
It's a complex and ever-changing landscape, and that's why it's so important to stay informed.
Absolutely. Educate yourself, engage in the discussions, make your voice heard. The decisions that are being made today will shape the future of crypto.
Couldn't agree more. And that's what we're all about here at CoinTalk Podcast, bringing you the latest insights, analysis, and deep dives to help you navigate this exciting and sometimes confusing world of crypto.
So if you enjoyed this episode, please do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, like the video, and share it with your friends, especially those who are curious about crypto.
And leave a comment below. Let us know what you think about Brian Quintenz's possible return to the CFTC. What are your hopes? What are your concerns? We love hearing from our amazing community here at CoinTalk Podcast.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the world of crypto.